The coffee shop manager snaps his fingers twice near the veteran's face and says he needs to leave because his dog is making customers uncomfortable. Robert Chun, 58, former Special Forces medic, feels his hands shake as 20 people stare at him and his service dog across the busy Seattle cafe. His faded unit patch sits visible on his jacket sleeve, while a teenager films the whole thing on her phone. Nobody knows that patch represents 6 tours in places the government still won't talk about. If you respect those who served in silence, hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling us about a veteran in your life who deserves recognition. Now let me tell you what happened next. Robert Chun just wanted his usual Tuesday morning coffee. He'd been coming to this same cafe in downtown Seattle for 3 years now. Same corner table. Same black coffee with 1 sugar. His German Shepherd, Maya, always lay quietly beside him. She wore her service dog vest clearly marked across both sides. This particular morning started like any other. Robert walked in at 7:30 a.m. The place was packed with the usual crowd of business people and college students. He found his table near the window. Maya settled down without a sound. Robert pulled out a book about mountain hiking. He was planning a trip to the Cascades for next month. Then everything changed. A perting changed. Woman in expensive yoga clothes at the next table started making faces. She pulled her chair away from Maya dramatically. She whispered something to her friend. Both of them kept looking over at Robert and his dog. Then the woman stood up and walked straight to the counter. Robert saw her talking to the manager. A young guy, maybe 30 years old, with a tight black shirt and gelled hair. The manager kept nodding. He looked over at Robert several times. His expression grew more annoyed with each glance. The manager marched over to Robert's table. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask if there was a problem. He just stood there with his arms crossed. He told Robert that several customers complained about the dog. He said animals weren't allowed in the cafe. Robert calmly pointed to Maya's service dog vest. He explained that she was a trained service animal. He had every legal right to have her there. The manager rolled his eyes. He said he'd heard that excuse before. He claimed people buy fake service dog vests online all the time. He insisted Robert was probably one of those people trying to bring a pet where it didn't belong. Robert felt his chest tighten. He tried to keep his voice steady. He explained that Maya was legitimate. She was trained for his PTSD and panic attacks. The manager cut him off mid-sentence. He said the cafe had the right to refuse service to anyone. He needed Robert to leave immediately. By now, half the coffee shop was watching. The yoga woman smirked from her table. A businessman in a gray suit shook his head in disgust at Robert. A group of college kids had their phones out. At least 3 people were recording. Robert stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. Maya sensed his stress and moved closer to his side. That's exactly what she was trained to do. But the manager stepped back like the dog might attack him. He raised his voice louder. He told Robert he was making a scene. He needed to get his animal out of there before he called the police. A young mother pulled her child away from their table, even though Maya hadn't moved an inch. An older man muttered something about entitled people abusing the system. The teenager who started filming earlier zoomed in on Robert's face. She was probably already planning to post it online with some caption about fake service dogs. Robert reached for his wallet to pay for the coffee he'd ordered. His hands were shaking badly now. The manager waved him off rudely. He said just get out, no charge. He just wanted Robert gone. The humiliation burned through Robert's whole body. This was supposed to be his safe place. His quiet morning routine. Now dozens of strangers were staring at him like he was a criminal, like he was some kind of fraud. His breathing got faster. His vision started to narrow at the edges. These were the warning signs. A panic attack was coming. Maya pressed against his leg harder. She was doing her job perfectly. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Robert picked up his book with trembling fingers. He started walking toward the door. Every eye in that cafe followed him. Some people looked away when he glanced at them. Others kept staring with judgment written all over their faces. The yoga woman actually said something to her friend, and they both laughed. Just as Robert reached the door, it swung open. A man in his mid-60s walked in. He had gray haircut, military short. He wore jeans and a simple green jacket. But something about the way he carried himself made people notice. He had that bearing that never really leaves certain men. This man stopped, dead when he saw Robert. His eyes went immediately to the patch on Robert's jacket sleeve. It was faded and worn. Most people wouldn't recognize it. It was a special operations insignia that wasn't standard issue. The kind you only got if you'd been somewhere specific. Done something specific. The older man's entire expression changed. His eyes widened, then his face hardened with anger. But not at Robert. He turned and looked at the manager with an intensity that made the younger man take a step back. The older man asked what was going on here. The manager, still acting tough, said he was removing someone who brought a fake service dog into his establishment. He was handling it. The older man walked slowly over to Robert. He looked at the patch again, then at Maya, then back at Robert's face. He asked Robert his name and unit. Robert answered quietly. He gave his rank, Master Sergeant, his unit designation, the years he served, 1987 to 2013. The older man nodded slowly. He said he knew that unit well. He'd worked with them on 3 separate operations. Once in 1994, once in 2001, once in 2008. He asked Robert if he remembered a mission designation that wasn't written in any official record. Robert's eyes met the older man's. He remembered. That mission had cost them 4 good men. He'd treated 3 of them in the field with injuries that should have killed them. The 4th didn't make it despite everything Robert tried. The older man turned to face the cafe. Everyone was still watching. He spoke loud enough for every single person to hear him clearly. He introduced himself. Colonel David Martinez, retired. United States Army Special Operations Command. He explained that the patch on Robert's jacket was from a unit most people would never know existed. The missions they ran were classified. The places they went didn't appear on maps the public got to see. He pointed at Maya. He said that dog wasn't a pet. That dog was a medical necessity for a man who'd spent 26 years serving his country. A man who'd seen and done things that would break most people in this room. A man who'd saved lives under fire in conditions they couldn't imagine. The colonel looked directly at the manager. He asked if he had any idea what PTSD actually meant. If he understood what happens to a person's nervous system after decades of combat stress. If he'd ever had to make life or death decisions while people were shooting at him. The manager's face went pale. He started to stammer something. The colonel cut him off. He said that what just happened here was a disgrace. This man served so people like everyone in this cafe could sit around drinking overpriced coffee in safety. And this was how he got treated. The yoga woman who complained tried to defend herself. She said she didn't know. She just thought it was a regular dog. The colonel turned to her. He asked if she saw the service dog vest. She nodded. He asked if she'd bothered to give this man the benefit of the doubt. She went quiet. The colonel pulled out his phone. He said he was calling the local news. They'd love this story. Decorated Special Forces veteran humiliated in public. Refused service despite legal rights. All caught on camera by helpful witnesses. The manager panicked. He apologized immediately. He begged the colonel not to call. He said it was a misunderstanding. He offered Robert free coffee for life. Anything he wanted. Robert stood there silently. Maya sat perfectly still beside him. The panic attack that had been building was fading. Not because of the apology, but because someone finally saw him. Really saw him. Understood what that patch meant. What those years cost. The colonel put his phone away. He told the manager he'd give him one chance. Fire up the espresso machine. Make the best coffee he knew how. Serve it to Master Sergeant Chin at his table. And apologize properly. Not just words. A real apology. The manager nodded frantically. He rushed behind the counter. Robert walked back to his corner table. His legs still felt unsteady, but stronger now. Maya followed. The colonel sat down across from him without asking. He said, "Robert, shouldn't have to drink alone." The cafe stayed completely silent. The college kids put their phones down. The businessman looked ashamed. The young mother seemed embarrassed. Even the yoga woman avoided eye contact. The manager brought over 2 perfect cups of coffee. His hands shook as he set them down. He apologized to Robert. Really apologized. Said he'd been ignorant and disrespectful. He had no excuse. Robert nodded but didn't say much. The colonel and Robert sat there for an hour. They talked quietly about old times. About mutual friends. About the weight that never really leaves. Other veterans in the cafe came over eventually. 3 different men. They'd recognized what was happening. They shook Robert's hand. Thanked him. One man had tears in his eyes. When Robert finally left that morning, something had shifted. Not everything. The memories didn't disappear. The struggles didn't end. But he felt a little less invisible. A little less alone. The teenager who'd filmed everything deleted the video. She came over before Robert left and told him so. She apologized. Said she'd learned something important. Maya walked beside Robert out into the Seattle morning. The rain had started, light and clean. Robert took a deep breath. Tomorrow he'd come back. Same table, same coffee. And if anyone had a problem with Maya, well, he knew now there were still people who understood. People who saw past the surface. People who knew what that faded patch really meant. The colonel gave Robert his number before. They parted ways. He said to call if he ever needed anything. Or just wanted to talk. Robert saved it in his phone. He probably would call. Maybe next week. Sometimes it only takes one person who understands. One person who sees the truth. One person willing to stand up and say this isn't right. Colonel Martinez was that person on a random Tuesday morning in Seattle. And Robert Chun went home that day feeling a little more human than he had in a long time.